Hey guys, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in today's video, we're just going to have a little bit of a chat, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on the difference between an economic crash, which is what we often talk about here in the prepping community, and a simple economic freeze. So I made a couple videos lately that haven't made it to YouTube because of equipment difficulties. Hey Wayne, how you doing? So mostly microphone difficulties have kept me from getting some videos up because I'll do a long spiel and then realize that the entire time I haven't been capturing decent audio. So I really need to get my equipment figured out before I'm going to get a lot of videos out of any decent quality at least. But doing all right, just having a little bit of a live stream before I get off to work today. Did a video yesterday that's not going to be uploaded because it just had horrible static throughout the audio. But I was talking about the difference between an economic crash and an economic freeze. And I think that the difference between these two will catch a lot of preppers off guard. So I started that video off by saying that we're going to talk about Fight Club and how I know that you don't talk about Fight Club, but we're going to talk about, hey, D-Mac, how you doing? So for those who have not read or seen Fight Club, the premise is, right on, what are you having for breakfast? The premise of Fight Club is that this man with multiple identities or schizophrenia or any host of mental issues, he creates a separate personality, which, without his active knowledge of it, starts a fight club, which he's involved in, which is the front for an anarchist terrorist organization. Bacon, hash browns, pancakes, and a smoothie. Sounds pretty good. It's going to be an energy-packed meal right there. I have my old standby. I had yogurt earlier, and I'm going to follow it up with oatmeal and eggs later. So, rest of the plot aside, at the end of Fight Club, they blow up the credit card centers for America with the idea that this is going to cause a financial reset. Just reset debt, erase all the money that people owe that these people think is just BS, and give everybody a chance to restart. Just gonna have coffee and watch the world burn. I'm there with you. So yeah, at the end of Fight Club, because the whole time they've been rendering fat and selling soap, but what they've also been doing is getting glycerin to make nitroglycerin. So they rig all these buildings because they work in the buildings. They rig them to blow. And at the end of the whole thing, they set it all off and watch it collapse. Too much rain for the world to burn. Yeah, it's a pretty wet world, actually. But it can still burn. All right, so the idea of this whole thing is to cause a financial reset. Now, I've always been one of those people who thought that even at the release of the book, movie, or even today, you would not be able to cause a financial reset or a deletion of all of the financial debt records, etc., by simply blowing a building up. I believe that those records are too duplicated, too dispersed, and too well protected to ever really be under threat from any human activity. So I don't really believe that a terrorist organization could act in such a way as to completely erase the records of who owes who what at any level. Exactly. You can't take down the cloud. And I don't think you ever could. Maybe back whenever it was all paper. A lot of banks probably don't copy everything and send it to 2 different buildings. Uh, but nowadays, it's too easy to duplicate things on different servers that simply cannot be gotten at together, especially at such a level that, that's a concern of theirs. Maybe not. We often do see hacks that allow information that never should have been available in any way, but which was to see daylight. So there is always the chance that we just have too much faith that they don't do stupid stuff all the time. Oh, Skynet's about to launch. All right, that's good. At least that's taken care of. It'll protect the cloud. All right, so my point is, we often talk about an economic crash in this community, but I often worry that preppers are not worried for something between today and the economic crash. I have often been of the school of thought that, of course, rippling effects will happen. Any minor collapse or freeze will just cause a domino effect, which will cause multiple collapses, because our whole world is just teetering on the brink of collapse at all times. But at the same time, I often do wonder if that's just prepper paranoia feeding into itself. We do live in a very interconnected world, a world that's so interconnected that it is possible that some of the things that we worry about having domino effects simply wouldn't in a lot of situations, because unlike times in the past, we do have the ability to co-support each other across regions and internationally in ways that we weren't in the past. So at least when we're talking about historical events like famines or regional economic collapses, those are things that we might avoid because of the ways that we have set up the modern world. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that we have done nothing to avoid. There's no reason that we should think that an economic freeze or stagnation like have happened in the 1800s or 1900s will not happen today. Hey, Backwoods, how you doing? Cool, thanks for listening in. So obviously preppers don't really have this kind of thinking, but a lot of people tend to have the train of thought that we won't see a Great Depression again because we've somehow changed things. And like I was saying, that may be the case because of the interconnectedness of the world and the fact that if something like that were to happen again, someone else might pick up the slack. But at the same time, that may not be the case. Either way, I do believe that there could easily be multiple different situations where the economy staggers for a while and doesn't collapse. And in the prepping community, I think that a lot of people sort of rely on things continuing like they are until there's a sudden and complete collapse. And that's the basis of my thoughts here. I worry that a lot of preppers sort of rely on the fact that their mortgage will disappear when a catastrophe happens, or their debt will disappear, or their responsibility to provide the daily needs for their family at their current rate will suddenly be alleviated in some way at the same exact time that they lose the ability to provide that. So what I'm getting at here is that a lot of people are juggling their finances when it comes down to not necessarily living on a paycheck to paycheck basis, but even living within a year of your means at your current rate. If your current demands far exceed what you would easily be able to replace if you lost your job or if the economy changed dramatically in terms of what people chose to buy. So let's say that gas prices suddenly do come up to $10 a gallon at the same time that food prices double or triple for almost all staple foods. And perhaps, let's say that in many places, water prices increase so much that it actually becomes a budgetary concern. Oh yeah, actual viral artificial intelligence is very scary stuff, Wayne. I was actually just thinking about this yesterday about how, because I have to ID people, because I sell tobacco, alcohol, and stuff like that. And it's a digital system, and you pretty much have to ID everybody unless they're very clearly over 40. And there are still ways that you can punch in dates and stuff, but if there was an AI attached, it would quickly recognize that the person looked different than the date that you were typing in if you were just typing in your birth date or something like that. So these digital systems are already becoming such that you have to worry about them recognizing patterns and stuff, even outside of human scrutiny. So that is definitely interesting to think about, that all it would take was the company that provided your point of sale software decided to implement AI, and you would start getting prompts from the AI saying that it recognized your behavior. So even just working in a simple retail job, very quickly you start to see the effects of AI. And that's not even getting into some of the other stuff. For instance, one of the people that I've been in contact with, one of the local YouTube channels that I've met through the homesteading, actually the guy who put it all together, he emailed me from a different email. And this is pretty basic, but I got a warning saying that he had not contacted me from that email before and to be careful about it. Now, that's not AI. That's just a very basic prompt triggered by a new email address. But the fact that those kinds of things are being implemented, even at a basic Gmail account level, really tells you that those processes are getting fleshed out throughout these systems to the point where very little or nothing actually goes unnoticed and unresponded to. So, little side tangent for the chat there. But the basis of my thoughts are that in our prepper community, when we talk about an economic crash, we're talking usually about something that within a few days, it's very clear to you and everybody else, regular non-prepper folk alike, that the economy is gone, that jobs are not there anymore, that money is not worth anything. And obviously that's a nightmare scenario, but from a prepper's point of view, it's actually a very clean, cut and dry situation. It's sort of idyllic when it comes to perfect. I can just jump right into using my preps and my skills, quit going to work, and just re-gear everything towards my survivalism mindset. And that's great and all, but at the same time, that's assuming that you no longer have any financial obligations that need to be provided for. That's assuming that you'll suddenly just be able to switch over to the survivalism mindset and never need to worry about getting your kids to school or paying for responsibilities or any of those things again. Now, if the economy actually collapses and we're looking at 5 to 10 years of just being completely on your own before any modern concerns come back, then the whole SHTF survivalism mindset is very feasible. But there are a lot of situations far short of that we might need to worry about. So if there's a Great Depression, for instance, nowadays it would be very different from how it was back in the first Great Depression. You would see a lot of companies that might simply freeze their assets but not go completely under. So let's say that your job doesn't fire you, but simply puts you on hold indefinitely. So you don't receive your last pay, but you continue to be responsible for your mortgage, for your debts, for your taxes, for the fines that are being assessed on those, even though you're not being paid. Maybe your job demands that you continue to work because it's an industry necessary service, but you're not going to get paid for it. But if you want to keep your job through the financial freeze, you have to keep working. Are you going to be able to provide for your family with what you have outside of working your 9-to-5 job without being paid for it, if that's what you need to do to keep that job through the other side of a 2-month economic freeze? Now, in a lot of these situations in the modern world, it's pretty likely that this would quickly spiral into a very ugly economic crash. But I do believe that we aren't outside the realm of rationing and things like that, to the point where if the government got ahead of it, even if it didn't actually save the situation, it could stretch it out long enough to make it very uncomfortable for everybody involved. And particularly so for preppers, because some preppers are poised specifically to respond to just a handful of situations. A lot of preppers, I worry, are gearing specifically for things to be exactly the way they are, for them to just have their job right up until the day that it collapses, and then they can walk home and live off of their preps and their homestead. But a homestead can also be a trap if you're providing for it using a 9 to 5 job and are not ready to self-provide before it all goes down. So these are all things that worry me a lot whenever I think about not an economic crash, but hey, Midwest Prepper, how you doing? Hey, Fireplug. So yeah, this is what I worry about, because we often talk about the economic crash, and that always hinges on the idea that it's going to be a flip of the switch and normal people are going to recognize it. If normal people do not recognize as a group, if the herd mentality has this cognitive dissonance, the tendency to believe that things are normal, you're not necessarily just going to be able to disconnect and go live on your homestead. If everybody expects you to be standing in ration lines, if everybody expects you to continue to be working for IOUs, but you know that this can't last, that there's going to be a full collapse, or if you can't say for sure that there won't be a full collapse, let's say that somebody really does blow up a lot of the credit servers, enough to actually freeze the system. Like I said, I don't believe that that would actually cause a complete deletion of all of our records. But if there was an actual organized terrorist, cyber or physical attack that caused enough damage to temporarily cripple our system, we could see something where, the televisions say all money is frozen, everybody will get a universal basic income with either a digital voucher card or actual paper vouchers once again. And this is just how it's going to have to be until we figure this stuff out. We're not outside the possibility of that stuff happening. And while that quickly could just turn into a collapse and anarchy because the population is just too large and dispersed and modernized for that to ever work again, we are less than 100 years from it having worked in World War II and times like that. So at least for a few months there, it could be very difficult for preppers to truly disengage. And it is possible that there could be a 1 or 2 month economic freeze that does not spiral into a collapse, but which would actually cripple preppers as compared to the regular person. You might not be able to sell gold or silver, even if you have it. You might be able to trade it with other preppers, but if it is illegal to trade in American dollars or something like that, it might be very difficult for people who are preparing for an economic collapse to trade silver or things like that, especially if barter is tightly controlled, because you're supposed to be dealing with a ration system. Yeah, Wayne. But we often talk about how being debt-free is one of the most important things that a prepper can do. And I really believe that this is important. Not only being debt-free, but having a low overhead and keeping your day-to-day needs as low as possible. In today's world, and I know this as well as anybody, it's very easy to let your expenditures snowball. Brass and lead, yes. Brass and lead are historically always good bargaining chips. All right, Wayne, I'm coming over. Oh, never mind. So where were we? Don't spend too much every day. I actually do sometimes, because I'm on the go a lot, purchase things to, eat on the go. I eat fast food, or else I'll buy packaged food like Cliff Bars and things, which are actually a pretty, cost efficient way to eat. But if you look at how much I spend each day compared to how much I would spend if I just ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches throughout the day and caught up on nutrition at night, I can spend quite a bit that I would actually be saving if I really buckled down and lived a very tight lifestyle. Now, those are all things that could disappear on a day's notice. And while it would sort of suck for me to have my routine change that dramatically, those, food, things like that, my daily expenses, those aren't a big deal. It's the recurring expenses, my gym membership, my video editing software, my insurance for my vehicle. Now, I own my vehicle outright, so that's not a concern at all. But in order, for instance, I need to register it again soon. So those are all things that I have to worry about, that I have to make sure that I always have money for. Now, for a lot of people who have children, mortgages, multiple car payments, cell phone payments for everybody, those things really add up. And those are all things that you sort of need to operate in the modern world. And you're going to need until you're able to simply disconnect from the modern world. And for a lot of people, they're not going to be able to simply disconnect from the modern world until the modern world collapses. So, am I missing part of the chat here? My thoughts today basically hinge around asking you to ask yourself, how much overhead do you have? Would you be able to provide for yourself and your family if your job suddenly became useless? Do you have job skills and the resume that allows you to very quickly get a job which will at least cover the bare necessities that you need? A lot of people today are so specialized that if their field becomes useless, if their job is no longer in demand, they're flipping burgers. And that's fine if you have your life where you can flip burgers and provide for your family. I've worked with people who are flipping burgers and successfully providing for a wife and 3 kids because they were completely off grid successfully, and their off grid lifestyle required very few inputs. So they simply needed to provide for the taxes for their property and for the few other things that they needed, like healthcare and stuff like that. But they were getting that through their side income and having a full-time job with one person. But that's very difficult to achieve. Most people require a lot of constant inputs to provide for themselves and their family. And they think that they'll be able to just have that right up until something dramatic happens and they're able to change their lifestyle dramatically. So the basis of today's conversation is ask yourself, would I be able to weather a 2-month economic freeze where all the money in my account is not there, where I'm not able to offload my gold and silver because the cost of them is constantly fluctuating and no one knows what it's going to look like on the other side of this? So even your fellow preppers are just saying, let's freeze all forms of direct currency, essentially. Maybe secret barter is happening, but maybe it's actually being tightly controlled, perhaps even through cell phone monitoring. So these are all things to think about. Are you able to truly provide for your family without the grid? I mean, completely off grid, but not in such a way that you're compromising your ability to reintegrate into modern society at a moment's notice, more or less. Just a brief pause in the way that things are. Maybe with you having to continue to work your job. Think about your job. Is it industry mandatory? a lot of people say that in a lot of situations, you just walk off your job. It's not that important. But some preppers do have sort of important jobs. Not necessarily that people are going to die if they don't show up to work anymore, but to the degree where there would be consequences if all of a sudden the grid wasn't collapsing and they called you back up and said, wait, you're in North Idaho all of a sudden? Why did you just move to North Idaho? So you just really need to ask yourself, is my life in a position where I can respond to any situation and not just the ones that I really think are going to happen? Can I respond to this without just having to quit my job? Because you might not be able to quit your job and move to North Idaho all of a sudden. You might need to be able to tough it out. And a lot of people are not set up to tough it out. They're actually sort of just ahead of their next bill, or just 2 bills ahead of their next bill. But that would change if they had to go for a 6-month period. Imagine having 2 years of an economic freeze, which I believe that would probably be too long for the economy to weather without serious catastrophe. But imagine that it lasts long enough for the IRS to start assessing fees, for banks to start assessing fees. Even though you have no ability to render payment to them, they're not receiving payment. So the things that are on the books that are due are receiving penalties in the meantime. So, maybe treasury bonds are the only thing that would be allowed to be used as a payment. Who knows? That's an interesting conversation to have, is whether or not there are certain forms of government, actual current, bonds or something like that, which might be insulated separately from actual dollars and credit and things like that. And also something that I did mention in the video that had the corrupted audio was the question of the constitutionality of defending property that was purchased on debt when an economic collapse occurs. So what I'm saying is, let's say that I find a nice patch of 10, 20 acres, and I go to the bank and I get a loan to purchase just 20 acres of raw land, and I put a cabin on it. And I'm halfway through paying that debt off when the economy totally collapses. Now, let's say 1 year into the collapse, some guy from the bank comes and says the bank is actually repossessing the land because they want to farm it, because the bank actually has a coherent council of people who is trying to repossess the lands that bank owned because they want to use it to farm for their group. What's the constitutionality of me defending that land if I am halfway through my purchase of it on debt from a bank when the collapse happens? I have my cabin, my family. I feel like that's my land, my kingdom. Do I have the constitutional right to defend it with my life? So that's actually something I'm pretty interested in hearing from you guys about, both here in the chat and in the comments down below, because these are things that preppers need to worry about, especially if it's only going to last 5 years. And then we suddenly have constitutional courts that are trying to figure out who was in the right with deadly boundary disputes, especially with things like land that was purchased on debt. So just some different thoughts concerning some of the intricacies of economic collapses, economic freezes, depressions, things like that. I think that a lot of the wiser preppers are gearing their preps towards being able to weather economic hard times and not just collapses. Having a lot of food that you can eat on a daily basis for a long period of time and still go to work or still just sit in your home without having to go and bug out to the woods is one of the best ways to insulate yourself against a lot of these things. Other concerns are, how far is your commute? Gasoline availability and gasoline prices are going to be one of the big bottlenecks that'll cause a lot of people hardship. I think a lot of preppers who commute long distances would suddenly find their lifestyle just not very feasible if gas prices tripled or quadrupled. And that's something that's very much within the realm of possibility. Fortunately for me, I could very easily walk or bike to both of my jobs, and really should just be doing that anyways, aside from the time constraints, to save on the money that I already put into gas and to get my lifestyle in line with that, so that I don't suddenly have to get myself to work. If gas prices do quadruple, I'm not going to be driving. If they increase even just somewhat, I just will stop driving and save that money. But I need to know how long it will take me every single day to get to work, and that's just something that I do not know because I don't ride my bike to work every single day. Yeah, Wayne. Yeah, they just let you run up the debt and then try to take it from you for the rest of your life because the system will let them do that. Anyway, that was pretty much all I got. So, who do we have in here now, and what are you guys up to today? Yeah, exactly. Gas shortages are one of the more likely things that we might face. Not necessarily because of peak oil or anything, but terrorist activity or state activity in the Strait of Hormuz or multiple places would cause a rippling effect in gas markets that would eventually reach us, if not immediately reach us. Short of economic collapses and things like that, we could very well see $10 a gallon gas prices throughout America. Yeah. Hurricanes, just anything. There's all kinds of activity or events that could cause gas shortages or an increase in prices to the degree that it cripples life. Oh, that's cool. I'm so behind Backwoods. I need to come check up on what you're doing. I really have just been pretty much radio silent with YouTube for a while. And sort of sucks, but I'm gearing up to get back on, except for every single time I make a video, the audio is it's corrupted, completely useless. So I'm going to get that figured out. I've got another device to do it with. So hopefully hey, Palmetto, how you doing? Hopefully I'll be gearing up to get back into the scene, at least somewhat. I keep saying that. Yeah, Backwoods. I've also, when we had our YouTube meetup here in North Idaho with the homestead channels and stuff, we were having a conversation about YouTube and what might be the next platform. Because a lot of people are losing that loving feeling. A lot of people who have resisted the urge to lose that loving feeling. Yeah, how is that little girl? Oh, the inflation video? Yeah, I was going to watch that and then I decided to go live. So apparently I'm just taking all of Palmetto's views. Sorry, buddy. Yep, all my fault. Everything bad is my fault all the time. Wow. 6 weeks old. That's wild, man. So what do you guys have going on today? What are you working on? I'll be getting ready for work after this. Yeah, I don't know. I should probably just quit YouTube altogether. Just keep getting in the way of everybody else. But yep, I'll be getting ready for work. Probably try to hit some of the stuff. We've got these crates. Oops, that's not the one. Up here. You see these crates over here. Where's my finger? Right here. They're full of books and prepper gear and stuff that I've been meaning to shove into that closet for a while. The closet is vertical, full of crates. Oh, going fishing? Well, that's not very fair at all. So I brought a bunch of stuff in from the garage thinking I had the time to actually put some of my storage out on shelves made of crates, like get my book library set up and get some of my gear just stored in my, my closet, so it's a little handier. And then it has just sat there next to my closet for like 2 or 3 months because I don't really use my closet and I've been too busy to get back to that kind of stuff. So no, I won't envy your sunburn. That's the one thing about fishing and stuff like that is I've had what I feel is my fair share of being in the sun and baking and being so sunburnt that I feel sick, too sick to work and stuff. So I try to avoid direct sun exposure during my leisure time. So I like to fish from a shaded bank usually. Mirror Lake. I know the name. I can't really say that I've been there. I've been to, there's just so many lakes here. It's hard to keep track of them all. Hey, Uncle Al. Hey, Steve. How you guys doing? Okay, that's not far at all. No, I don't think that I've been to Mirror Lake. That's only about within 30 minutes, though. It's on the list. Thanks. Oh, okay. Oh, is that? So that's the lake, and then wasn't it Wallace that they filmed the downtown scenes in for Dante's Peak? Yeah, because you go through Wallace. Those abandoned mines that I was in a while back was Burke up past Wallace. So I'm pretty sure when you go through downtown Wallace, you see a sign that says the filming place of Dante's Peak. Working, packing up, and gearing up for a gun day tomorrow. Sounds fun, Dan. No, Wallace, Idaho. I don't think it's named after William Wallace. They got a good brewery there. Yeah, 2 jobs. Sort of got it a little more streamlined than it was. Cool, Wayne. I'll get out there and get you a video. You can see what it's like nowadays. But yeah, Palmetto, I'm working the pizza job, and then I'm working the new job, which is beer and wine and cigar and vapor shop. It's actually a pretty impressive place. I mean to do a video and just show everybody the selection because, hey, Wandering Ranger, how you doing? Good to see you. Because it's a pretty cool place to work. I'm not a heavy drinker, and I quit smoking a couple of years ago, but I've actually started puffing on cigars again because they sort of need a cigar guy. And so, I enjoy them. enjoy smelling them and checking them all out. And Gunfighters Inc., huh? Is that holster company? Oh, it looks like it. Okay, yeah, I think they're moving to Rathdrum, which is not far from me. Yep, Palmetto. Yeah, I'm pretty positive that one of the other YouTube channels from my area sent me a text about that. Because yeah, I don't know if he was asking if I needed another job or a different job or something like that, but he was telling me it was pretty cool that they're moving there. Rathdrum is a very nice town, and it's a very good spot for that kind of industry to go in, because you've got so many redneck boys looking for work, basically, and the burger places are not cutting it. So, you get, in fact, a couple of the channels that live in this area that I went to that meetup with have boys that probably will end up working at a place like that. So, oh yeah, Wayne, I've only been in this particular area for a couple of years, but you can just tell the growth that's going on. Okay, Palmetto. Yeah, and apparently I missed that post because I've just been missing everything. I keep meaning to go to the bar and just catch up on all of my comments, but that would literally take quite a few, like 4 or 5 hours. So I hope it's going to happen, but it just has not yet. Nothing but the IGA. Wow. Yeah, backwoods. Well, this whole area is just so, ripe with that kind of stuff, with that kind of people, just homesteaders, rednecks, farmers. Yeah, Palmetto. So yeah, you asked about the normalcy. It should be there. Largely, I'm just running into equipment difficulties that sort of keep me from jumping on videos as much as I was. But I got a used device from a family member that I just factory reset. So I've got the 2 jobs streamlined to where I think that I'm not doing them 13 hours a day back to back anymore. So I should be able to mentally manage at least 1 video here and there, if not, trying to return to my 2 or 3 video a day workload that I was doing. But yeah, I'm definitely going to check out Gunfighters, because actually my holster is in a sorry state. I've just been using a very cheap fabric under the belt holster, and I've actually replaced them because the hammer starts to wear through and then it hooks itself, which is just completely unacceptable. So I'm going to see if they have a nice under the belt for my Snub Nose 357. Alien Gear is just down the road for me too. So I also want to check them out. Wouldn't hurt to at least, go in places and maybe wear my YouTube shirt. But anyways, how you doing lately, Uncle Al? The Kanai. I see that. Oh, interesting. Chest holster. Yeah, so anyway, should be gearing towards getting videos out again. Mostly it's that I keep my devices with me. I've been filming with a smartphone, and with enough abuse, they do start to degrade. So my headphone jack, which I use to plug my microphone into, my external microphone, it just doesn't carry sound anymore, and there's a 50% chance that it's just going to transmit static. So I can do an audio test and hit record, and the audio comes through fine. And then the next time I hit record and film a 10 or 15-minute video, it's just horrible static the whole way through. And there's no way that I can tell how to fix that. So I'm just going on to another device. Hopefully we'll be good. And just the other ways that I have to film besides my main device that I've been using are just not very quality or very convenient. So see you, Steve. Catch you later. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, that'd be cool. Affiliate. Or even just, some kind of association. Be cool. Nice. Leather Kydex. I've been wanting to do videos on how to make PVC holsters, not because it's something you'd really want to use on a day-to-day basis, but just the NSA. No, it's just legitimately crappy equipment, because I'll carry my filming phone with me out into the woods, and just, the internal microphone plug and the audio plug will just be full of dirt or something by the time I'm done. I've been using it through the winter, so it got snow in it when I was in the snow cave. My video equipment gets abused. That's why I use cheap smartphones from Walmart. You might not be able to tell how shattered my network phone is, but literally I use them until they do not start again. I've been using that $45 Straight Talk Walmart phone for 3 years now, while multiple people that I know have spent $700 a year on phones. So I'm pretty okay with using a cracked smartphone. But that's my current filming phone, which does just fine. The camera lenses are actually, I've been very good about the camera lenses, so they film just fine. But that's the one that has horrible audio because the microphone has been abused and the audio jack is useless. So we got the nice new phone from a family member, and we got the GoPro. So hopefully it will be in the clear from now on, cooking with jet fuel. Really, Wayne? Hey, Systemic Divide, how you doing? Thanks for dropping in. Metro PCS, unlimited everything, and includes Amazon Prime for $60, huh? And just buy the phone outright. I'm doing all right, Systemic. Just earlier on, we had a little bit of a chat about the difference between a total, complete economic collapse, where everybody, including normal people, know what's happening, and everybody just runs around with like chickens with their heads cut off, except for preppers who are completely prepared for this. The difference between that situation and the economic freeze, where the president comes on the television and says, we have had to freeze the economy because of X number of reasons. It is now illegal to trade in American dollars. ATMs and credit cards are frozen. You will receive cash vouchers in some way or another, and that is the only way that you will be allowed to get your rations. But you have to keep working if you want to keep your jobs, if you want to have money waiting for you on the other side of this economic freeze that's been caused by a Fight Club style, terrorist attack. Exactly, Systemic. So the problem with a lot of preppers, though, is that I fear a lot of preppers are geared towards having their job right up until everything happens and everyone knows that it happened, and they get to just run into the woods or off to their cabin or whatever, or turn their backyard into a garden. But let's say that the president comes on the television and says, we have to get through this for 1 month. There will be a universal basic income provided to everybody. You will use your government issued ID or social security number at stores to get food vouchers and gas vouchers or whatever, and those will be called into a central processing system or whatever. They figure out a way to have a universal basic income and rationing for everybody. They tell us it'll last 1 or 2 months. You have to keep working and blah, blah, blah. You will accrue debt based on fines for debts that were already outstanding, etc. Could you, as preppers, get through that without having to just run off into the woods or tear up your backyard and start gardening? Are your preps geared towards being able to live without access to your bank accounts, without the ability to sell gold or silver because it's actually illegal, and actually the other people who would buy your gold and silver have no faith in what it will be in 3 months? But you need to make it through 2 or 3 months and still be able to reintegrate into modern society on the other side of it. Hopefully, without debts that will be so outstanding that the IRS and your bank now want 40% more than what you owed the day before it all started. Yeah, bartering, but at the same time, bartering could be illegal. That's pretty extreme. It would be pretty difficult to enforce in such a situation. But, if you want to bring artificial intelligence into it or digital monitoring, what if they threaten to have penalties for anybody who tried to create black market systems, and they were going to use cell phone records to enforce that after the fact? What if you literally were not able to do that kind of stuff and you had to worry about everything coming back to normal after just a month or two? I know that it's a very specific and unlikely scenario, but what I'm getting at here is the concern that preppers are all completely geared towards everything being normal until the collapse happens and everybody knows that the collapse has happened. It would just be difficult to disconnect from society if society didn't necessarily think that things weren't the way that they were. And there will be, that period of time where everybody thinks things will come back to normal, and they may or may not. And I think that one of the scarier situations for preppers might be the uncertainty of whether or not it's time to quit your job and run into the woods, if that's your plan. That's why, getting into the lifestyle, that's why I think people end up wanting to homestead, set up their sustainable, independent lifestyle so that they are as close as possible to not needing to change their lifestyle in those situations. Interesting, Wayne. Those are very interesting things to have flagged. You didn't cuss or anything besides them? No, Palmetto, I don't think that they could ever truly squash barter. Interesting, Wayne. Well, I'm not going to repeat those words because I don't want my feed to suddenly crash, but apparently you can't talk about debt anymore without YouTube trying to cut you down. Yeah, Systemic, it's, I realized that I hedged a lot of bets out, that I made a very specific situation that, honestly, in a lot of these economic freeze situations, so many people can't shoulder that kind of austerity to the point where it would quickly cause some kind of ugly situation. And at the same time, the world won't really care if all the preppers are what? Maybe the dedicated preppers that would disappear from society, if all of us did, is like 1%, maybe 3% of the population. And the population could handle that. If 3% of the people just disappeared into the woods, some of us would be back. But, it would just be a personal catastrophe for a lot of preppers if they made the wrong call and quit and ran into the woods with 4 kids and then had to come running back to society and reintegrate and be in debt and be behind by that much. So mostly just word of caution to people who are gearing up for SHTF or nothing. Yeah, Palmetto, you do always focus on the economic stuff. Not always, but that, I mean, it's a good thing to pay attention to, because if nothing else happens, eventually something bad will happen with the economy. It's just an eventuality. Oh yeah, Palmetto, absolutely. Um, One thing that I always try to point out to people is that taxes are cumulative. If you're a consumer, you pay all the taxes. For instance, something as simple. This is something that I like to give regular people who don't think about these things. A fork, something as simple as a steel fork. People think that they're paying for the fork and the taxes, the sales tax on the fork. But what they're actually paying for is the gasoline on the machinery that was used to pull the ore out of the earth for that fork. And you're paying for the healthcare for the people who ran the machinery that pulled the steel ore, the iron ore out of the earth. And then whenever that iron ore got shipped by truck to the smelter, that truck and the insurance and gasoline for that truck were figured into the fork that you're paying for. And all the taxes on all of the man hours, all the labor, all of the gasoline, the truck, the registration, all of those taxes and overhead, a small percentage of that goes into the cost of your fork. So you're not just paying taxes on your tax form, when you get your paycheck. You're not just paying taxes when you buy something at the store and pay a sales tax. The actual cost of everything that we buy over the last 200 years or whatever, however long you can say since there's been a financial reset that affects the cost of goods. Exactly. All of those costs, they trickle down to the consumer. That doesn't just stop somewhere else along the line. So the consumer is the one who pays for all of the taxes that were paid to get that good to market. They don't just get paid by the trucking company because they want to pay taxes so they can do their jobs. So the actual cost of goods, if you are looking at things from a completely objective point of view, is largely the taxes that have accrued, and even the debt on past taxes for past forks that you never even purchased. Though that tax burden, that inflation burden, gets eaten up by the actual cost of goods over time. And that's I don't know, maybe that's something that you mentioned in your video about hidden inflation, Palmetto, but there are just multiple different forms of hidden inflation, where, like the trucking regulations, people don't appreciate that the amount of your hours that it takes to provide the same amount of things has increased so many times since the white picket fence was a reality. And that's what I point out is you could have had the white picket fence on 20 hours a week with just one person working. A guy could just go out and work a pretty simple job and provide enough to have your standard good lifestyle. But over the years, that has dramatically changed. I mean, during the 70s and the 80s, having a full-time job, working overtime, that was the guy who wasn't having enough time for his family, not working 60, 80 hours a week, just having a full-time overtime job in a lot of places was more than you needed to just have a basic, simple lifestyle. That was trying to have a lot. That was, even the white picket fence, it's not good hardwood with, whitewash on it. But, we are being robbed. We've been robbed of the lifestyle that we should have had because, corporations have put the profit, the burden of profit on citizens rather than, the people that import their goods from other countries. people are crying about tariffs when in reality, tariffs are that's how you should get your money. You shouldn't be taxing your own citizens to provide the money that your government needs. You should be getting it from the other countries that want the stuff that you got. But if you look at the cost of goods compared the amount of time that it takes from your life to provide a white picket fence lifestyle, let's just stick with that. You want a 3-bedroom house with a Ford Mustang and a truck, your basic ideal American lifestyle. You can pick a Corvette, whatever, let's say, but you've got a couple cars, you're going to get another one for the kid, you got kids growing up, you got a nice house, you got all that stuff. You don't even need to be working full time because all that stuff is pretty cheap. Nowadays, to provide 2 or 3 cars, 3-bedroom house, near enough to the schools and the job to not be a hassle, you need 2 people working full time. So the amount of your life hours that it takes to provide for each individual product has increased because over the years, we're still paying for the taxes as they increase. When they just increase a tax, that trickles out into everything that you purchase and then comes back at the consumer. So yeah, thanks for the sidetrack there. But that really actually is not a sidetrack. It does feed back into, oh, see you, Backwoods, heading out. Geez, all right, well, hope everyone turns out okay. Good luck, Backwoods. That doesn't sound fun. Cash strippers and cheeseburgers. All right. Uncle Al's got a decent plan there, guys. But no, have a good one, Backwoods. Good luck. Let us know how that goes. The whole, increase, the inflation, all that stuff, it feeds back into the economic hardship stuff. Things will get harder if nothing catastrophic happens. If we don't have an economic collapse, a Yellowstone, a World War III, a plague, or whatever else we talk about in this prepping community, we can pretty much bet that eventually things are going to get more expensive. Things are going to get harder. There's going to be another recession or depression. There's the chance that technology comes along and just continues to create plenty. Maybe some new energy technology or food production technology or some new field of industry and jobs shows up and just infuses resource into the world, almost like discovering a new continent used to do. It used to be that only expansion could fuel growth. Nowadays, sometimes technological expansion can fuel growth. So we could still see that where all of a sudden someone discovers some new field of enterprise that just expands the world and provides resources and jobs and just infuses growth into the world economy. But at the same time, those opportunities sometimes seem to be getting fewer and far between. One of my video ideas lately has been the fact that we have been in a technological and advanced stagnation for the past good chunk of time. Our technology is not so much better than 40 years ago than it was 40 years before that. If you look from the 40s to the 80s and then from the 80s to now, we've done almost nothing compared to those first 40 years. And that's sort of to be expected because it's hard to push boundaries like the ones that we pushed up against during the space race and stuff. But at the same time, I'm not saying that we're being held back or anything like that. But the point is, stagnation is not good. And we are in an economic and technological stagnation. So unless something does change considerably, we do need to look at, if not economic collapse or complete catastrophic situations, what tends to happen during technological and expansion stagnation periods. So just, if you want to take something away from today, from, what I'd like you to take away is pay attention to how hard it would be for you to get by thin, but not change things dramatically. To have to tighten your belt or live basically with no inputs, but still need to reintegrate into society at some undesignated future point. All right. Well, I got a minute to chat, and then I'll probably get going, get ready for work, and get on with my day. But what are you guys all going to be up to? I've already asked that a couple times, heard from a couple of you, but I think Palmetto's going fishing. Yeah, cutting costs is only a stopgap. You can only undercut yourself so far before you acknowledge the fact that you deserve better. Packing for vacation. Uncle Al will be resting and doing some light reading. That's good. Wayne needs to get books for this semester. Where are you going to? Rough idea where you're going to vacation? What kind of place? Going tropical, heading for the shore. Cool. Sounds fun. I haven't been to the ocean in a few years. Uncle Al's been working since 4:30 a.m. Pacific time for him. Hey, Broussard. Broussard. How you doing? Dealing with Hurricane Barry. I've been out of the news. I need to catch up on that. Going to the Atlantic for systemic. Never been to the Atlantic. I'm a Pacific boy. How bad is it over there, Broussard Homestead? The only ocean? It's the only ocean with the Titanic in it. Pacific's a pretty nice ocean, though. Batten down the hatches. I'm going to have to check this out. How bad is Hurricane Barry? I'm just so out of the loop on some of this stuff. I'm sorry. It's sort of shameful. Well, I wish everybody luck with that. Isn't too bad right now. Wow, Wayne, that's pretty impressive, actually. Everything but the Black Sea, huh? That's crazy. You been on the Dead Sea? Is that big enough to warrant? Is that considered an actual sea? Never seen the Pacific. Come on, I've seen the Pacific. I think that's the only one I've seen. Swam in the Dead Sea. Right on, man. That's pretty cool. I'm untraveled. Completely west of the Mississippi for me. But I'm a student of people who have been there. That doesn't count for too much, but I've always accepted that traveling might be something that unless I join someone who's going to travel me for me, I probably wasn't going to get around too much. It's a lot of money that I need to spend on prepping and stuff like that at this point. Wow. Grocery store. Yeah, I guess that happens in a lot of hurricanes, huh? Maui's on fire? Brush fire. Wow. Yeah, it is. Holy crap. It's like an aerial picture of the island of Maui, and it's like obscured by smoke. That's crazy. Yeah, Wayne. That's been the main reason that I have avoided the military or different things like that. I could do it. I know I could do it, and I'm sure I'd love it. But at the same time, I would always chafe about the loss of my personal liberty. Um, Call me selfish or whatever, but I think that I just know that I would eventually uh, love my liberty too much that would be the sticking point for me. And I don't want to do something like that without full commitment. So that's been my main thing. I wouldn't want to end up wanting to be a selfish dropout, but I have often almost joined up for the training, the travel, and the experience. Yeah, and that's the other thing is I didn't want to get stuck in a stan or die in a stan. So yeah, I guess I'm just sort of a selfish person because I know that I could do it and do it well, but um, I like to think that I got a place here. So not to say anybody else doesn't. Aviation. That's cool, Broussard. Yeah, I can see that. And I've thought about the guard or whatever, but you know, my goal is just to be a good citizen, ready for whatever. I think that every country needs people who are just ready at home to work and maybe be there if there's any kind of problem. I've never been someone thinking that we need some kind of home citizen guard, that there's going to be an invasion or anything like that. But Kyrgyzstan, yeah, I've heard Kyrgyzstan isn't as bad as the other stands. But I do think that uh, countries have been put at a loss by having all of their best and brightest in militaries and often away when something bad happens at home. 12 on, 12 off forever. That could get rough. I like variety. Oh, Chinese. Yeah. Asian Russians are interesting. I did a couple school reports on Kyrgyzstan and just different places in that area. So it's always been interesting to me that period, that range of area where Russia and Asia haze together. I mean, Russia is like at least half in Asia, technically, isn't it? But much of Asian Russia is Caucasian. 38-hour shift on Iwo Jima. See, that's the kind of stuff that's just not fun. I mean, like I said, I know I could do all that military stuff, but 14, 15-hour shifts of shoveling and chainsawing and stuff like that is enough for me. Yeah, I figured Russia was like, I mean, like 3/4 in Asia. I didn't want to overestimate it, but if you actually look at a map of where Asia is, it's almost all Russia. But there's kind of like, but I mean, the Caucasus region is where the word Caucasian came from. So, um, Russia is very white, but it's very interesting, yeah, where it merges. During Benghazi. Okay. Interesting. What was I doing when that was occurring? Let's see. "2012." God, I can't even remember what I was doing in 2012. Three days straight. Wow, that's crazy. I guess you would, huh? Sitting there ready to go. 2012, September 11th and 12th, 2012. I probably was building my mini home up in North Idaho. Just being a redneck. Oh, yeah, they definitely were. All because of indecision or political misdecision. Oh, yeah, Palmetto. We always have units in the area. There's nowhere in the world that you can't drop bombs or American soldiers within just a couple hours. Interesting, Systemic. I'd be interested to hear more of your thoughts on that. See, Uncle Al. See, Systemic. Actually, probably need to wrap it up all together, guys. I should go get ready for work. I don't like scrambling at the last minute. Right on, Wayne. Cool. Well, thanks for serving, guys. Thanks for being there trying to help those guys out. It's a shame you weren't allowed to. Thanks, Palmetto. Appreciate you guys dropping in. Hopefully, we can make this more regular, get some more videos out. And I'm liking the streams. I was hesitant with the streams, but I'm liking leaning towards them more. So hopefully we can do this more. Hopefully I'll be getting more videos out on a regular basis now that I've got a little more time and hopefully my equipment figured out. So well, thanks, Palmetto. You flatter me. All right. See ya, Uncle Al, Anthony, Wayne, Systemic. Who else we got here? Anybody else in here? Broussard, maybe? All right. Well, have a good Saturday, everybody. Good luck with what you're doing. Everybody stay well, stay safe. Thanks to everybody who rewatched and stuck around to this point. Oh, Wandering Ranger, you're still here. Cool. Well, you have a good one. Thanks for listening. Yep. Thanks, Wayne. You guys all take care out there and hope to see you soon. See you guys later.